So I tried looking for the first documented use of a cannon, and most places said 1200 to 1300 in China, but the rest I'm not sure about. Some place told me it was against the Mongols in 1280, some other website told me the first recorded date of a manufactured gun was 1298, meaning maybe it was 1280? So fine, I thought, China 1200 to 1300, but wait, this here website is telling me that it was 1346 in Genoa, so I went to r/ask historian to see if someone else had my post was removed for asking a basic question. So the best I got is China 1200 to 1300, and I don't have any finer details. Alright, welcome to another video. Today's video, if you hadn't already guessed, is about the howitzer. I'm going to be looking at the howitzer's history and how well the tabs mod translates the howitzer in game. First of all, what is a howitzer and how does it differ from a cannon? The main difference is the angle in which it fires. More specifically, howitzers fire a higher angle than a cannon. Howitzers also commonly sport a shorter and wider barrel. So those are the main differences. Now let's get on to the history. This video will only look at French howitzers, else we'd be here all day. The first period in time we'll look at is the Napoleonic Era. Weapons that use gunpowder became humanity's favourite way to kill each other, and in France this was no exception. Before howitzers were taken into the field, they were used mainly for their ability to fire a great variety of angles, which for some situations made them preferable over cannons and mortars. In the early 1800s, howitzers were deployed in the field. They did still provide the same versatility that howitzers were known for, but they also had the perk that they could fire less standard ammunition, such as explosive ammunition. One such cannon was the Smoothbore 12-pounder, which was of French design. Whilst we're on the topic of ammunition, cannons and howitzers were and are defined by the ammo they fired, more specifically the weight of the ammunition. So when you hear the French 12-pounder, it refers to a gun that fires cannonballs that weigh 12 pounds. However, as time went on, artillery would be defined by the diameter of the ammo, but in the 1800s its weight. Looking specifically at the French, Napoleon used howitzers and artillery in general with an emphasis on mobility. French cannons tended to be lighter to give them a tactical advantage as they could be easily manoeuvred. Their lighter weight also allowed them to be moved up alongside the infantry, giving Napoleon and his marshals a huge variety of options and flexibility in how to conduct warfare. Speed would be one of the things Napoleon would be best known for. Imperial French artillery in general was pretty standard, meaning they all used the same ammunition, same amount of gunpowder, and the artillerymen would be familiar with any cannon that they were assigned to. Which brings me to the final innovation Napoleon made, the Grand Battery. Huge batteries of artillery that could easily be moved in mass due to their mobility to strategic points. Once the battery was in position, it would unleash a hail of cannonballs at enemy lines. The mobility of howitzers would be one of their defining features in Imperial France, heavily playing to Napoleon's tactical genius, allowing him an unprecedented amount of flexibility that could keep up with his brilliance in maneuver warfare. Just a bit of extra history before we move on. This is what Europe looked like in 1812. Following Napoleon's hugely successful campaign of Europe, he pretty much had mainland Europe under his thumb. It would be his defeat at Russia that would be his downfall. I actually made a video on that, which is in the archive if you want to watch it. Napoleon abdicated in 1814 after suffering a crushing blow by the Sixth Coalition, and then came back in 1815 and started another war. Was then defeated at Waterloo and finally abdicated for good after ruling over France for a combined 15 years. Napoleon lived out the rest of his days at St. Helena. Napoleon died in 1821. Alright, next time period. 1914, the start of the Great War. Howitzers played an important role in trench warfare, being used to soften up enemy trenches before troops would charge over the top. From what I was able to research, there was nothing stand out about French use of artillery, so I'm going to be talking generally when talking about howitzers in this period. Howitzers in the First World War were used in a largely anti-infantry role, used to take out enemy trenches, destroy communication lines, and it could also be used to break up attacking infantry coming across no man's land. Armies employed a tactic called the Creeping Barrage. This consisted of a forward-moving barrage of artillery fire with infantry creeping closely behind it. So in theory, the soldiers in the trench would have a hard time dealing with the attacking troops as they're under artillery fire. In practice, communication and timing issues prevented this from being very effective. If the artillery fire and infantry were out of sync, the defending trench would have the opportunity to react. The creeping barrage would most likely result in the death of a few friendly soldiers, and when the British first used it in the Battle of the Somme in 1816, it failed due to the aforementioned communication issue. However, as the war progressed, the tactic was improved and made more effective, but it was far from ending the stalemate in the West. Alright, I did it for the Napoleonic Era, so I'll include some extra history here. The main plan for the Germans in the First World War was to quickly take out the French and turn on the Russians, and then win the day. But the Franco-German border was covered in a series of bunkers and fortifications called the Maginot Line. To deal with this, the Germans had a plan, the Schlieffen Plan. The idea was to go around the Maginot Line by invading through neutral Belgium. This brought them some success until the invasion stalled and turned into a stalemate. Germany by nature isn't suited for long drawn-out conflicts. It doesn't have the industrial capability or resources. That's why the Blitzkrieg doctrine in the Second World War is perfect. It's quick and very effective. Speaking of the Second World War, that's what I'm going to talk about now. Nailed it. The only problem is the French were taken out of it pretty quickly, so there's not a whole lot to talk about because they'd spent most of the war being occupied by the Germans. And this video is getting pretty long. Alright, time for the in-game one. I just want to say right off the bat that the models and textures in this modded unit look amazing and pretty accurate. I think I may have found the exact artillery piece that the in-game one is modelled after. This thing, this very French thing. The howitzer, as the name states, has a caliber of 6 inches and had a maximum firing range of 1200 meters. The gun had a barrel length of 71 centimeters and the whole thing weighed 312 kilograms or 701 pounds. The howitzer was loaded with shells, which at the time consisted of hollow cast iron balls filled with gunpowder, which meant that they could explode after being fired. This is very well represented in game, even putting it side by side with the cannon, the one from the mod, not the official one. It's clear it's a howitzer. Each artillery piece is defined and the difference between them are easy to observe. Alright, it's time for the bit that most people have skipped to. It's judgment time. Overall, it's a pretty good unit. It represents its real life counterpart well, in both performance and looks. It stutters a little, but apart from that is relatively bug-free, and in gameplay terms, it works really well. A huge step up from the T90 that I took a look at a couple weeks ago. So, yeah, I mean, thank you so much for watching this video. If you did enjoy it, thumbs up would be amazing, and also a subscribe as well would be amazing, just to show me that you want to see more of this content. That'd be amazing. Also, in the comments, if you could comment what you had for breakfast, that would be great. That would confuse the people that haven't made it this far into the video. So that would also be amazing. So yes, that's it. That's everything. Like, subscribe, the bell, give me money, and that's it. Goodbye.